Hello, here's a quick demo of Airborne Hotspots. We're going to pretend that we're preparing a flight to an airport we've never visited before, Tracy, California. So we're just going to type the identifier in the window, and there we are. So this is an airport that's in the Central Valley of California, just to the east of the Bay Area. And it's, it's an untowered airport. It's not super busy. Usually you see at most 3 or 4 airplanes in the pattern here. There's a flight school at this airport. There's some flight schools nearby, so this airport's used a lot for students working the pattern. There's a decent amount of practice IFR approaches and that sort of thing. So let's take a look at what we got here. So the purple is the traffic, and the darker it is, the heavier it is. So it's basically a density map of how much traffic there is in all these areas. So immediately we can see the hint of a pattern here to the southwest, and since we don't see any RP in our airport data block, we can assume we're going to be landing to the northwest most of the time. We can be more sure if we just put our mouse over the little airport icon in the middle, and we can see that just above my mouse pointer, runway 30 is in use 80% of the time. So we just learned something. So when we show up to this airport, we're most likely going to be landing to the northwest or maybe to the west. So what else do we see? Let's look at this. Let's look at other things that are purple here. So we see a lot of straight in traffic, straight in, straight out traffic, looks like, for this main runway. And we also see what's not quite a standard 45. Look at this 45 over here. It's kind of headed toward the departure end of our normal runway rather than to the midfield. And we can kind of see why. There's this restricted area right here. There's also rising terrain here. If you look closely enough, it's more obvious in person, of course. And so we just learned something else. Like at this airport, lots of straight ins, and then the 45 is kind of modified. People tend to duck off a little bit more to the north to make that 45 entry. So what else do we see here? So let's look at these dots that are around here. And these represent our loss of separation events that have been detected via ADS-B. In this period shown at the right, this was 3 months the summer of 2025. So let's click on a few of these and let's see what we see. So here we've got an aircraft approaching from the northwest and another aircraft just taking off on our normal runway. And boy, it looks like they just barely missed each other there. So what's really going on here? I'll try to pause it right when they get close to each other, and we can look at this a little bit more carefully. So right about here, if we zoom in a little bit, we can see these guys are only 100 feet apart vertically and pretty close horizontally. It's measured actually over here. This is 0.15 nautical miles, looks like they're away, which is something like 900 feet, 3 football fields. They got pretty close. We can also see that the departing aircraft is above the arriving aircraft. So there's no way the blue aircraft saw the red aircraft. They're going to be nose high, climbing, and then the red aircraft is arriving and below them. Fortunately, the red aircraft saw the other one and got out of the way. So that's interesting. Let's click on a few more and see what we see here as well. So red airplane this time is doing a touch and go, looks like. Yeah, and same sort of thing, blue airplane on doing this opposite direction arrival and got out of the way, fortunately. Let's click on another one. Looks like same sort of thing, touch and go from the blue airplane. Red airplane's coming in. This time the blue airplane got out of the way. Looks like continuing the pattern. Red airplane went around and kind of ducked off a little bit more to the south. Click another one. Same sort of thing once again. Yep, exactly. Click one more. And again, we're seeing that same sort of pattern. I think this one's maybe a little bit different. No, maybe not. Same thing. Touch and go. Red airplane got out of the way. One more. This is, 2 airplanes took off in close proximity, so not so relevant. But we saw this big pattern, right? One event after another of opposite direction straight ins. You can guess they're probably on a practice IFR approach against these runway 30 departures. So we just learned, that's another thing we just learned. If you're doing a departure off 30, watch for this opposite direction straight in traffic. And if you're doing the straight ins, maybe do it for the other runway. I know there's practice approaches available for both directions on this runway. Let's look at one more grouping of these loss of separation events. Let's look kind of down here in the 45 or midfield downwind area. Click on one. So somebody just crossed overhead midfield. Somebody else is approaching on the 45. They got kind of close together here, and the other aircraft kind of cut in front. Okay, interesting. Maybe not the best practice, but here's another one. So here we can see aircraft crossing overhead, only 1,200 feet, pretty low. Oh, and they got really close there. And then look at this. They're going to use different runways that intersect. So that's kind of interesting. A lot of stuff going on in that one, but you know, the number one thing is that, you know, the field elevation here is 200 feet. This airplane's crossing 1,000 feet above, and then sure enough, comes right into conflict with somebody in the pattern. Fortunately, the other guy's a little bit lower. Click on another one. We see again the pattern continues. Somebody's arriving from overhead, from the northeast, is going to come into conflict with somebody in the pattern. That time they had some good vertical separation, so maybe not that bad. You can also see nobody's really making a good 45 over here because there's terrain over here. Let's click on one more. Sure enough, looks like the same sort of thing. Somebody's arriving overhead. This time they've got some better vertical separation, but the red aircraft started to climb. So we lost signal for the red aircraft there, but the red aircraft was maybe departing to the southeast and then climbed right into this the blue aircraft. Still a little bit separated, but not by a whole lot. 500 feet. Not great. So that's the other pattern we see here, is that lots of arrivals from overhead from the northeast, and because the pattern's so compressed here, people are going to tend to be descending early, not doing a big proper 45, outbound 45, inbound 45, and it tends to create some conflicts in this area, kind of in the midfield downwind area.